video is going to be super fun. I am excited. One of you guys requested that I do a makeup tutorial. I'm flattered. And I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to do more of a get ready with me. So I'm going to try to do a makeup look that I've never done before. And at the same time, I'm going to talk to you kind of Bailey Sarian style. I'm going to talk to you about some creepy, strange, paranormal stories from Alabama, which is the state in which I currently live. It's gonna kind of involve some multitasking. At the same time, I'm completely experimenting with makeup, so hope it goes well. I didn't practice or anything. The makeup look we're gonna do is inspired by Barbara Bouchet. She is a film star who's been in many of the giallo films I've been watching lately, and this is the 70s, okay? So this is like a 70s inspired look. She had this really cool eyeliner slash eyeshadow look that I don't really see anyone doing this, and I haven't thought of doing something like this myself, so we'll try to do a 70s look. Let me part my hair down the middle. So I'm gonna do like real makeup, you know, foundation and everything, but I'm not gonna talk you through it. I'm just gonna do it while I talk about paranormal stuff. Let's get started. So first things first, I wanted to talk about a couple of databases. The first one is the BFRO database, the Bigfoot Research Organization database, and what you will find there is where anyone all over the country, and I think Canada too, will report their Bigfoot sighting. You can click on your state and you can click on your county and see what's been going on. I think it's highly interesting, but I love Bigfoot. And I love that he can be seen anywhere. He's probably been in your county. So I thought first I would share a story that was, paraphrase a story that was shared to the BFRO. And it takes place in Autauga County, Alabama, and I actually used to live in Autauga County, which is why it piqued my interest. So, this takes place at night. There were these two hunters. They were hunting on a hunting land there in Autauga County. I always want to say Autauga Academy because there was a school there called Autauga Academy. Anyway, they were on this ridge that looked over a river, and you could see about the span of a mile. If it was light outside, you could. Okay, and this person has been raised in the outdoors, as a lot of Alabama people are, raised hunting, trapping, fishing, knows the sound of the outdoors, certain animals, whatever. Like, they have to disclaim this just to make, you know, show that they know what they're talking about. Like, they're not just imagining stuff. So when they get to the top of this ridge, the guy decides, one of the two guys decides that he is just going to hoot like an owl to see if anything responds. So he hoots like an owl, and I'm guessing it probably echoed across the ridge and down towards the river, and he heard a scream in response. Just put yourself in that situation for a minute and imagine that's happening to you. A scream. Okay. And so the guy asked his friend, like, what do you think that was? By the way, I forgot to include that this was 1985 that this story came from. Anyway, so his friend is like, well, it's probably the hairy man. Some of the farm hands around here have been saying they've seen the hairy man lately. And so the first guy, he decides he's going to hoot again. And he hears another scream in response, and this time it's closer. So whatever it is moving towards them. So they just continue to stand there for a while, and soon they hear something running up the hill towards them on top of the ridge. He said it was running very fast, so of course they took off. They went to go return to their truck. Who wouldn't? From his story, it sounds like they had to run through a hayfield to get to their truck. So he said by the time they got to the truck, they heard another blood-curdling scream from the woods, like right up against the hayfield. So they cranked the truck, drove as fast as they could to this gate, the gate to the property. And his friend was like, well, you have to close this gate because we don't want any trespassers to get in. So the guy gets out of his car and he hears another blood-curdling scream from the hayfield that they had just driven through. And he said, the gate didn't get closed that night. And that's it. That's all there is to the story. That's what they would call a Class B Bigfoot encounter because they didn't actually see the Bigfoot. But I still thought that was pretty cool, especially when it's like right there where I used to live. And I don't know, like on one hand, Watauga County. I didn't even go to Watauga County, so I don't know why it rolls off the tongue so easily. Watauga County, I mean, there's not much in it, but there's not like state parks or anything like that. It's just nothingness. Like, there's nothing there. And there hasn't been a Bigfoot report in the BFRO database in that county since 1985. So it sounds like Bigfoot doesn't like to hang out there. Now the next story is Washington County, Alabama. I don't know where Washington County is, but this is one of the more recent reports from Alabama. This person said they were driving home from work one afternoon. They were kind of lost in their own head because they had like some stuff going on, as you do, just concerned with their problems. And they saw something up on the side of the road. But you know, it's common around here, deer, whatever. He or she didn't think much of it. But when they came up on it, they realized it was a tall, hairy animal standing on 2 feet. And it had like blonde hair all over. And as they got closer to the animal, it walked off into the woods. When the motorists got up to where the thing had walked off, like they kept their eyes on the thing to like see how tall it was. And judging by where it hit against the trees and stuff, it was about 9 to 10 feet tall. And the person wrote, the only thing I could think was Bigfoot. And that was the end of their little story, which was a Class A, I think? That would be a Class A sighting. But this is in broad daylight. Isn't that crazy? I would just love for that to happen to me. Like, I would like to see a Bigfoot from my car. That's what I would prefer, thank you. But I always stop and I look at my door frame, which is what, 8 feet? An 8-foot door frame? And I think, imagine a human-like creature that stands 2 feet taller than that. They're giants. That's so creepy. Our next story comes from Morgan County, Alabama, which is where I used to live as well. It is in North Alabama. Very redneck. And this is written by someone who was kayaking on a creek. It was daytime. The creek is deep in some parts, and it is not uncommon to see deer or turkey in the area. This guy comes around a curve, and he's just, paddling along, and he heard this splash. There was a splash right in front of him. He thought it was a fish, so he keeps paddling, and then he hears 3 more splashes and realizes that they're rocks. Someone's throwing rocks at him. So he slowed down and, stopped to look, and he saw where the rocks were coming from. It was a creature that was sitting on the bank of the creek, sitting on its knees, the same way a human might. And then it stood up, and the guy said, as soon as it stood up, the hairs on my neck stood up. He said he made eye contact with it for like 30 seconds. Can you imagine? And then it just ran into the woods. And he mentioned that when it ran into the woods, it didn't care about like moving like branches and stuff out of the way. He just like ran through them. So after that, the guy was like, that's enough kayaking for the day, and he paddled back to his truck. But you think he doesn't sound too crazy, but then he decided he was gonna go back that night That's crazy. So he went back that night just to like see if he could see it again. He said he like howled to see if it would make any noise back. And instead he got 2 knocks back, which if you know anything about Bigfoot, you know that's like one of their things they do. So the guy then knocked back at it, and he got another knock back, and that was the end of the story. I can't imagine seeing something so amazing. That's it for my selections from the BFRO database. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot more I could share, but I just decided to get a few highlights there. But I did want to share some more. We have local folklore here. We have a monster called the Alabama White Thing, and some people describe it as like a Bigfoot, but it's all white. Other people say it's more like a feline or something, or like a big white cat. But it howls, it shrieks, it lives in the woods, you know, a lot like a Bigfoot does. But it's been a pervasive legend throughout the years. There's even a Facebook group about it, which I thought was pretty cool. Reddit, I have found, has several anecdotes as well. There was one I read the other day that was like, said that this white creature was as big as a Honda Civic on the side of the road, and I was like, okay. And apparently people have been seeing that since the early 1900s. And just a little bit about our wildlife here. We do not have bears or like big cats. Well, when we do, it's a huge deal. We freak out. It goes viral. It's a whole thing. So you can't really confuse the sightings with any other large wildlife because we don't really have a lot. But I get excited when we do have something like a black bear or something, but then people freak out and want to kill it. So in addition to the BFRO database, we also have the MUFON database, the Mutual UFO Network. This is where people report their UFO-related sightings. And this one's really cool too, also because you can submit pictures and videos, which I guess you get more UFO videos than you do Bigfoot videos and pictures, you know? Anyone can upload their video, which of course most of them are taken with an iPhone, and it's just a picture of a light that's in the sky, and the camera's shaking, so even if the light's moving, like, you can't tell, right? But they're there. They're there. And it seems to me that there are a lot more UFO sightings reported than Bigfoot sightings. Maybe it's because you can see UFOs anywhere, but you have to kind of like be in the woods to see Bigfoot. Our first story, now these aren't really the longest stories. They're just kind of like, I saw a light in the sky. But our first story takes place in Eufaula, Alabama. I've been there for like swim meets and stuff. Oh, this is at Lake Point State Park. So this person says that they were like, it was nighttime and they were down at the docks with a friend looking at the stars, and it was a crystal clear night. And they're just chilling, and then like suddenly the person's like, oh look, a shooting star. And then the shooting star stopped. It just stopped in mid-air, and then it started shooting all around. I'm sorry if you can hear my cat rubbing on the door. He wants to come in here. It's not gonna happen. So he said this thing, like, I keep saying he, whoever it is, said that this thing like shot all around. And then there were more of them. More of them came, and they just all were flying like crazy. And he said that they did this for hours. I can't believe that this stuff happens every day and people see it. But then what do you do with it? What do you do with that? There's nothing you can do. They said the lights had lots of different colors. They would appear and disappear. They said it was the craziest thing they've ever seen. They said there was no airports, can confirm, and that they would love to see it again. I, for one, would be terrified and never would want to see that again. UFOs are a whole different maybe they're not a whole different thing than Bigfoot, but UFOs scare me much more for some reason. And I forgot to mention that when I checked the MUFON database, back when I was gonna do this video a long time ago, it had said that there were more than 50 reports of UFO sightings in 2020 alone in Alabama. And you know, our people aren't really willing to talk about stuff like that. Okay, the next story comes from Pell City, Alabama, where I have also been. So this person said that they had lost their mother like a couple of days before. And they were at their grandparents' house and they just went outside to clear their head, to look at the sky. It was a beautiful night. And suddenly they heard like what sounded like the siren from an ambulance. And they were like, oh. And then they saw this crazy light in the sky and they were like, oh, dang, someone got hurt and they're about to get airlifted. And this is like the helicopter coming to get them. But as I watched this craft, they list all the many reasons why it was not a helicopter. It was not a plane. You know, judging by the shape, the movements, the maneuvers, the lights, all that kind of stuff. It was completely silent. It was flying, you know, in an unnatural way that helicopters and planes do not fly. And they just watched it like zoom around all silently. They started to film it and it would like dart out of frame. And eventually they just lost the thing. They couldn't see it anymore. And they were like, you know, I don't know what it was. I just know I can't explain it. And they said, I've never really been into that whole UFO thing, but I guess that's what it was. And I always appreciate that. Like when not a non-believer, but someone who just like never was into it is like, I guess that's what I saw. Also in Alabama, there were several reports on the MUFON page that I feel like they're all from the same person. Because of the way they like, don't have a location listed, they don't have a date listed, and they don't have anything else. And it's like worded the same kind of way. But somebody, I think it was like in Huntsville, they were saying like that they've seen a gray running from their yard into the woods. And you know, that is terrifying. That is terrifying. But I don't know if I believe that one. I don't know. It's just the way it's worded. You'd have to see it. But they also have been saying that they've been abducted. Which I don't discount that. But there are a lot of liars out there, you know. So I guess I've seen a UFO that I can tell you about. It was a couple of years ago. I wrote about it on my blog, for tnt.wordpress.com. So I was on my walk during lunch, as I do every day, and it was about this time of year, 2 or 3 years ago now. I saw, like, you could barely see it. It was so far away. But I saw this, like, group of disc-shaped, shaped kind of like this, and it was a group of them, and the group was kind of shaped in an inverted triangle kind of thing, and you could see the group was like circling together. Every time they'd circle, you could see like a reflection coming off of them, like as if they were metallic, but oh, you could barely see them. And they were just like, you could tell as they were circling together, they were also moving farther away. So I just kept my eyes on them as long as I could, and they were gone. It was, you know, I couldn't have taken a picture of it or anything. But that was all there is to it. Maybe there is an explanation. But since I don't have an explanation, it's a UFO to me. Other than that, I really try not to look for them because I'm scared. Now I'm going to tell you about the Falkville Metal Man. This is a story from North Alabama. Again, we are in Morgan County. And this story takes place in 1973. October 17th. There's this guy named Jeff Greenhall. He's the sheriff, the chief of police, excuse me. He's at home, but he gets a call at home. And someone says they saw a flying saucer land. So Jeff Greenhall went to go investigate. He didn't see a spaceship. He didn't see anything. So he got back into his car and drove around the area. Suddenly, he saw somebody standing in the road. And he yelled to the person, and the person did not answer. He approached the person and realized this person was shiny. They were metallic. It was as if they were covered in foil. He said that its movements were robotic. And he said this thing had an antenna on top of its head. So Jeff had a Polaroid camera, so he decided to take a picture of this thing. And then he said this thing ran away into the field at a superhuman speed, as if it had spring propulsion. Jeff tried to chase it down in his car, but just couldn't keep up with it. That's basically the story of the Falkville Metal Man. But Jeff, again, chief of police, he told his story. He shared the picture, which you can still find. I'll post it here. He shared the picture and was just ridiculed. He was fired. He and his wife got divorced. Even his house got burned down. And it's really a shame. And I wanted to find him. I can't find where he is now. I guess he doesn't have social media. But this happened very close to somewhere I once lived. I have a sorority sister who has a podcast called Southern-inspired, I think. And she did an episode on this, and apparently she spoke to somebody who was partly behind the hoax, or either they knew somebody who was behind the hoax. So I think the final word is that it was a hoax, but it's just shocking that it happened right here. Oh my gosh, I did a lash. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I put lashes on. I'm really not good at this. Oh my god. Okay. The final story I'm going to tell you about today is the mysterious disappearance of Orion Williamson. This takes place in Selma, Alabama, which is also close to somewhere I used to live. Anyway, so in 1854, there's this guy named Orion Williamson. He's a farmer, and he has a wife and a son. So one fine day, Orion decided he would go walk across the field and have his farmhand move the horses into the shade because it was a hot, sunny day. So he picked up a stick. Excuse me. Somehow my cat knows how to open the door. So he picked up a stick and he was just like playing with it as he's walking across the field. Go holler at his farmhand. As he's walking by, some of his neighbors pass and they can see him over there crossing the field. So they wave to him, "Hi, Orion." Orion waves back, "Hi." And right there, he just goes poof. He's gone. He disappears. He vanishes from sight in just the blink of an eye. There is no trace of him. No indicator of how this could have happened. So, hundreds of people come out to search for Orion. They searched until the sun went down. They went back at it the next day. They never found him. And they never found any clues. Well, like I said, it was October. Maybe I didn't say that. It was October. So, the next year, once spring came around, they went back out to see if they could find any clues. The investigators, I mean. They went to the very spot where he disappeared, and it was now a barren, dry area in the field. And his wife mentioned to them that during this time, she and her son could both hear Orion calling for them, and they could hear it for weeks, and it gradually got like quieter and quieter, like as if he was getting farther and farther away. And eventually they just couldn't hear that anymore. And Orion Williamson was never found and never seen again. I do have to disclaim a few things. A lot of people think this is a straight hoax, like a straight folk tale, like that he never even existed. But even so, I could never forget it. And plus, the story came from right here in Alabama. Okay, my Barbara Bouchet-inspired look is done. I think it is actually pretty cool. I hope it looks cool on camera. I hope you enjoyed the stories. I know they weren't the most exciting things ever, but they're from here, and that is special. I had a few more collected, so if anyone thinks this is cool, maybe I'll do a part 2 or something like that. And I guess I'll just wrap things up here. Let me zoom you out. Give a better look of my 70s middle part and my 70s makeup. If you don't know who Barbara Bouchet is, look her up. She's a goddess. And feel free to tell me any scary stories or any requests or anything. Just talk down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.